Hello, hello. This is Yuriy of Moving Sales Professionals and Let's Talk Moving podcast. And with me today, I have Andrew Large, the new Director General of the BAR, British Association of Removals. How are you doing today, Andrew?
I'm very well, thank you, Yuri. Thank you so much for having me on, and greetings here from what was sunny London.
Well, sunny. You got rain, we got snow coming.
Yeah.
Good times. So let me
Yes.
ask you this, Andrew. So how did you get started in the industry? Where is the affiliation? How did this come about?
So my affiliation is very much with trade bodies, not with the removals industry. So this is the first involvement I've had with the removals industry. But I've spent over 20 years working in trade bodies in the UK in a variety of different industries, including industries where they're small businesses, where the owners and directors are very active in the business still. And I very much saw a commonality between that previous experience and the sort of average BAR member. When the opportunity arose, I put my name forward, and I'm very pleased to be here as a result.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can definitely see the parallel. There's a lot of obviously smaller moving companies or removal companies that where the owners are still jumping on the truck, or they're in the office and they're heavily involved. They're not, somewhere in Bali or other island. They're actually involved in the business on daily basis, and if they do take time off from the business, it's not a lot of it at all. So, how did you became affiliated with the bar, and what has led them to choose you for the position? I understand that you submitted your interest,
Yes.
but
Yeah. My predecessor was Ian Studd, who I know
right.
is very well known across the
Yes,
global
yes.
industry. He'd been in the removals industry since he was, a teenager. Massive experience, former president of BAR, and he'd gone in. He's now retired after having done 10 years as the director general of BAR. At that time, the board was taking a view as to what kind of an organization they wanted to build going forwards. And I know there were a number of candidates, some from the moving industry, some not from the moving industry. And I think what I offered particularly was experience of running other trade associations and understanding what good looks like in a trade association context. And what I hope to do over the next, however long it is to use that experience of professionalizing trade associations and use it to the advantage of BAR, and to improve the what BAR does, improve the benefits for members, grow the organization, grow its influence. When the time comes, leave behind me a better BAR for the industry and for my successor, whoever they may be.
And now for a word from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com today to learn more.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing. Like obviously we are based in US, so we deal with a
Yeah.
lot of US companies as far as moving industry goes. Now, moving industry in US is a lot heavier regulated than UK or any other part of the world that I've, at least had communication with on the subject. So we're definitely a lot more focused. There's definitely a lot more rules, regulations, laws that affect what people do. Rogue movers, we have extent where movers cannot cross state lines. In the United States. So, for example, if they're registered to operate in the state of Maryland and they don't have a motor carrier number which allows them to cross the state lines, they're not supposed to be going to Pennsylvania, they're not supposed to be going to Virginia, or they're not supposed to be going to DC. If they do and if they get pulled over, they can get as much as a $30,000 fine, which is quite hefty. And obviously, for companies that are small and just starting out, that's the quickest way to get out of business and
Yeah,
not stay in
absolutely.
it. So there's a lot more. Not to say that there aren't rogue movers, of course there are,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's definitely a smaller group, and penalties are hefty if you get caught doing it,
yeah,
basically, right?
yeah,
So in UK, you have different categories. You have porters, which are basically
yeah,
just your moving labor, from what I understand, right? And
yeah.
then you have some of the other categories of different type of services provided affiliated with the removal industry. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, of course. I mean, to your first point, We, in a sense, in the UK, have the exact reverse challenge. There's nothing to stop you joining with a friend, getting a van, going on Facebook, and offering yourself as a removal service. And so we face a challenge as to how do we professionalize the industry and how do we persuade the consumer that actually it's better off using a professional mover because you avoid all of the downside risks of using somebody who has literally just bought a van and started working. So you're right, we have porters. I guess the other two major categories of people are the drivers, so the heavy goods vehicle drivers, and there's a whole apprenticeship and training process that goes around that. And then finally, there's the transport management. So actually the logistics of making sure that the vans and the crews and the packing materials all end up at the right place at the right time in order to deliver the service for the client. And one of the things that BAR does is we have a structured training program, part delivered externally through an apprenticeship scheme, part delivered internally through BAR training, that seeks to upskill the industry and offers people the opportunity to start at the very basics of learning how to pack, learning how to lift and load safely, right the way up to full sort of transport management and professional qualifications at the top.
Does your company need more creative marketing and ad campaigns to improve traffic and organic leads? Well, Moving Sales Professionals has a solution for you. We have partnered with social media marketing agency that has over 300 million views on their ads and videos across social media. And they have generated over $35 million for their clients over the last 10 years alone. Their services include content creation, social media ads, pay-per-click campaigns, website and funnel development, Google Ads, email marketing campaigns, lead generation, and much, much more. For limited time only, they have discounted rates for their services. Sign up for a free consultation call with us via our Calendly link on our website or below this video.
Okay, and so that's great. So you are trying to go to more towards our way of doing things in terms of structure and law, so to
Not
speak.
law, not law. So there's no move at all to regulate the industry in that sense for there to be
Okay.
legal requirements. And of course, the UK doesn't have the same sort of federal structure that the US has. So we don't have the sort of restrictions that you just described. But what we are trying to do is professionalize the industry and then work with the consumer to demonstrate why a professional mover is a good bet for them. So we're trying to use the market to deliver what perhaps you're getting delivered in a more regulatory sense.
Right. No, I understand that. And that's also what we do here at Moving Sales Professionals. Our goal has always been from day one to provide professional salespeople for the industry. So that has always been the goal. Now, what is your personal mission for the bar? What are you seeing as something
I
that needs to be done, something that's missing, something that you want to implement?
I mean, there's a lot of technical stuff that I want to implement in terms of the management of the association. But I guess if I were to summarize it in one word, it's growth. So we need to grow the membership. We need to grow the benefits that we provide to our members so that our members see great value for money. And then we need to grow the influence of the association and the industry with the government, with the media, with consumers, so that more people know than currently know just how important a professional mover is, and just how they need to change the way, whether it's regulation, whether it's law, whether it's consumer behavior and practice. People need to change what they do so as to advantage the professional mover and gradually ease out the sort of informal economy guys that are starting to take significant market share but aren't actually providing a good service.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. Obviously, there
Yeah,
are other trade associations that are affiliated with removal industry. And of course,
yeah.
I got to be the devil's advocate here a little bit. So
Mhm.
why the bar and not a different association? What is it that you provide that's different from the others that are out there?
I think what we provide is two things. I think firstly, we've got the biggest suite of benefits, both internally in terms of what we do. So our terms and conditions of business are very highly respected. Our consumer mediation service means that in the event that there are difficulties, there's actually a body that's helping the remover resolve those issues rather than being left alone to deal with these sorts of complaints.
Hmm.
We're also, got a significant training service offering, which means that we're opening up to the members to upskill their workforce and become better movers. And I guess finally, it's the network. We are the largest association in the UK. And so if you want to learn from your peers, if you want to engage, whether it's through the area meetings, whether it's through the national committees, then, you have an opportunity to network right the way across the industry, from large multi-site, multi-branch, corporate entities right the way down to smaller individual sites, SMEs. So,
So you have an
we
opportunity to approach, obviously, if you're starting in an industry, you're a smaller company,
yeah,
you just got the bar membership, you have an opportunity to speak to companies, the owners that are farther down the road that you are, and
absolutely.
see what steps they took to get there.
Absolutely. And our area meetings are the ideal vehicle for doing that. So I was, recently, well, earlier on this week, I was in Sussex, which is south of London, for a meeting of our Sussex area. There were about 30 people in the room, a whole range of people, from, larger corporate movers right the way down to, individual, one, two, three-man businesses. Really interesting exchange of views on a whole variety of issues, things like the subsistence rates that drivers get paid, that removals operators get paid when they're away from home, right the way up to bigger picture issues about taxation and so on. So, really interesting debate, and everybody was on the same footing. So it didn't matter how big your company was; everybody got the same hearing, everybody got the same opportunity to engage. So, I think that was a really good example of the sort of thing that we can do for people.
Now that's great, and I mean, obviously, we do all sorts of events in US as well, where we're trying to do the same thing, where there's a lot of networking that's taking place. Now, where do you see the removals industry in UK going in the next 2 years?
What do I see? I mean, I think the first thing is we're really dependent upon what happens in the housing market. And the housing market is, very much sort of balanced on a knife edge at the moment. The overall economy is growing slowly, which means that the what I would call the positive drivers for moving, so a new job, possibly a new relationship, a new member of the family, they are not as strong as they might be. So, dependent upon what happens to the economy is going to be a big driver as to what happens in the housing market, and therefore what happens to demand for removal services. I think in terms of big trends, I think the really big trend at the moment is getting back to basics and really helping people to make their businesses profitable. And I think that's going to be the biggest piece of work that BAR is going to do in things like our conference programs and agendas and the help and support we can give to the membership. It's going to be helping them build and bolster their profitability, in the months and years to come, so that those businesses are in a strongest position as they can be. If you look at sort of longer term, bigger picture stuff, the use of new digital tools, AI, and how you integrate AI into your operations, whether it's supporting transport management, whether it's supporting vehicle packing, whether it's supporting the surveying and quotation process. I think there's always interest in that. We're hearing entrepreneurs who've got new products in those areas all the time. And it's very, very interesting to see how that develops and whether it does become core and majority of what the industry does. In the way that video surveys have taken off. Video surveys have taken off very,
Well,
very
yeah,
quickly. So it's
I don't know if you had a chance to speak with gentlemen that are from my side of the pond that were there this past time at the Movers and Stores, the guys from Live Switch. I know them personally, so I know the owner of Live Switch. So they actually they found out about the event from me initially.
right,
So
right.
but yeah, I mean they have a great product. They
Yeah,
really do.
yeah. And I mean, but even down to the stage of people just doing it on like a FaceTime call. So somebody has a
Sure.
FaceTime call with the client. They take the client goes into every room, and the
Yep.
people can sort of take
Yep.
notes. They can
I've
record it,
done that
and they can
multiple
see.
times
Yeah,
myself, so
absolutely.
absolutely. It's
So that's the one thing, and I guess the other thing is just looking at vehicle fleets. What is the future of the diesel vehicle? What is the future of the electric vehicle? And in Europe, in particular, is the legislative requirement to change? Is that going faster than the technological ability of the electric vehicles to actually do the job? Because we have in the UK at the moment, the lowest sort of category of vehicles are the 3.5 ton, and there are a number of electric options that are available. But the battery weight is so heavy that actually the load capacity is not enough for those vehicles to currently really be
Right.
viable. Now,
And
the
at the same
technology,
time, you have
yeah,
smaller vehicles that you use in UK because obviously you're talking about an older country, you have narrower roads,
we do, we
and
do,
that impacts things. Certainly in US, we got larger vehicles for as far
yeah,
as moving industry goes. You know, I mean, for most moving companies, they're using somewhere between a 16-foot truck and a 26-foot truck. So we don't focus
yeah,
on the tonnage per se. I mean, there's a limit
yeah,
if the truck is going once again across state lines because they do need to be weighed at the scales and stuff like that, weigh stations that we have a whole network of them across the United States. But within the city, that doesn't have as much of a play because within town, if there's no scales around, that's not something that's necessarily affecting things. But size
yeah,
wise, yeah, I could
yeah.
see how
No,
that could
I
be.
mean, I mean, one of the growth markets in the UK is people moving from apartment to apartment and actually
Right,
moving in an urban area. And they tend to have a smaller number of possessions. And indeed, we're seeing
right,
people just leave their possessions behind. So people are buying flat pack furniture. They're treating it as disposable. So they're really not moving as much as perhaps historically when people would take all of their possessions with them, all of their furniture, all of their personal items, and it would be a much bigger load. On one level, the technology with smaller EVs works. I mean, and in the UK, for example, the regulatory limit has just been increased from 3.5 to 4.2 tons to try and reflect the fact that the battery is adding extra weight to the vehicle, but actually the load capacity needs to be compensated for as a result. But
sure.
it's still that the technology is still not mature. People are trying it, but the technology, I think there's more development yet. Not just
Yeah,
with the
there
weight.
aren't too many electric trucks for the moving industry in US. It's not something that I've seen often, if at all.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I mean, it's a way of the future to a degree,
I mean, I think it's
but
it's
it's
it's not
still
commonplace in the
right.
UK, but it's most movers will have either got one or be trying one or have tried one.
Right. Well, I
So,
mean, well, there are options. There are
yeah,
options. Is it something
exactly.
that works better? Is it something that at the end of the day ends up saving money for the company where they can divert the funds they would have spent otherwise to other necessities such as advertising, such as sales, such as
I mean,
something else?
I think the problem in the UK at the moment is that overall, as it were, box per box moved,
Hmm.
the EV option is more expensive. And so it's a regulatory driver that is potentially making the process of moving more expensive.
Hmm.
Now, that's not to say it will stay like that all the time, but technology develops. Battery and charging technologies will improve, no doubt. But as it stands today, for most use cases, a diesel vehicle would still be the most economic option.
Probably. So, I mean, we have obviously we have diesel vehicles. We also have regular trucks that are using regular gas, not diesel. So
Yeah,
we have both of those options that are more often that I've seen that I've personally been on those trucks. So
yeah,
I've certainly seen that myself. But that's great. I mean, it's always good to hear another option. I mean, we don't have something that's equivalent to the bar per se. We don't really have trader associations with that same focus for the moving industry. But what we do have is an entity like the Better Business Bureau, for example,
right.
which is
Oh, yeah.
more of a
Mm,
consumer agency
mm,
where the consumers can go and they can look at the reviews of the movers. They can look at the how they do the business. Are there, lots of complaints? Are there not lots of complaints? So something like that is definitely has place to be. And I'm
yeah.
sure that's if there is no such thing currently in UK, I'm sure there will be eventually.
Well, there isn't quite the same thing, but we're members as BAR of an organisation. Well, we're affiliated to the Chartered Trading Standards Institute,
Hmm.
which effectively does a similar sort of thing. They operate what they call the approved code scheme. So we have a code of practice that's
Right.
binding on
But
our members.
how are they like, for example, everybody in United States know what the Better Business Bureau is, consumers,
Yeah,
I mean.
yeah.
How many consumers in UK know of existence of this company? Is it commonplace like the Better Business Bureau in US, or is it like
I mean, I would say that consumers know what they call trading standards because trading standards is
hmm
what it used to be called.
right.
And I think consumers would have a broad knowledge of that. again, I come back to the fact that membership of these various organisations in the UK is voluntary, and the
Hmm.
barriers to entry in the removal industry are basically non-existent.
Right.
So one of the things we try to market to consumers are the benefits of using a BAR member, and one of them is that the consumers have a higher degree of protection through the CTSI approved code of practice and the complaints resolution, dispute resolution processes that go along that than they would do if they just picked somebody up off Facebook and sent the money by bank transfer over WhatsApp or whatever.
Right. So like
Yeah.
so comparatively, so we got basically for US, we got if for example, if
Yeah.
I'm talking to a consumer and I'm speaking on behalf of one company and
Yeah.
they got an estimate from another company or and let's say that company is not legit, it's a guy that just picked
Mhm.
up a truck. Let's like in UK, for example, right? So there would be I would do three things. One, I would look up on Google and see if there's any reviews about that company versus the company I'm representing.
Yeah.
Two, I would look up on the Better Business Bureau, see if they even have a page, if they even exist on the Better Business Bureau,
Right.
which
Yeah.
would tell me
Mhm.
if how long potentially they've been in business. It
Mhm.
would tell
Mhm.
me if there are any reviews, if there are any complaints or anything like that. And then
Yeah.
there's another part which is that's something you probably don't have, although you may know something I don't, which I'm
Mhm.
still learning around a lot of the things about how UK industry operates in that regard. So we also have something that's called Safer Web, which is
Right.
basically it's the short version of the Department of Transportation website where you can look
Okay.
up the company by their Department of Transportation number, their motor carrier number, or their name, and then
Yeah.
and by looking it up there, you can see
Mhm.
if you don't find the company at all by any
Mhm.
three of the one of those three things, that means it's
Mhm.
not licensed to operate and it means it does
Mhm.
not exist and it should not be conducting business at all. And if it does exist, it would tell you if that entity is a carrier that's allowed to carry loads, or
Mhm.
if they're a broker that's contracting the work out, or
Mhm.
if they are once again licensed across the state lines or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we don't have the state lines licensing
Right,
concept in
right,
the UK.
right.
I mean, we do have some similar concepts. So, if you have vehicles that are heavier than 3.5 tons, then you have
Hmm.
to have an operator's license, what's called an O license, and you
Hmm.
can search to see whether you actually have that license or not. Likewise, you can search to see if a company is registered for VAT, which
Hmm.
is an important sort of legal
Right,
compliance. VAT is like sales tax equivalent you would have in
right.
the US.
But.
And you have to register for that if your company is bigger than a certain size.
Hmm.
But quite a lot of these informal economy operators don't register for it, and so they're essentially evading tax. And so that's quite a good guide. There are a whole range of different referencing and rating bodies. We have an engagement with a business called Reference Line. So Reference Line picks up customer reviews of BAR members,
Hmm.
and they're publicly available, so people can look at those and see what the reviews have been of members. Having that sort of impartial customer feedback is actually one of the provisions of the code. So we would look very much, to advise consumers to take those steps themselves, so that they can look and see, who are the companies that they are, asking to quote, and they can then make a judgment as to, what are the costs and benefits of each of the different people. And of course, obviously, we would
Right,
advise people to always use a BAR member, because BAR members, we check ourselves whether you have your O license, whether you're properly
right.
paying your employees, whether you're meeting your financial and other obligations, and so on. So we make those checks on behalf of the consumer, and that's backed up by this independent code of practice and also the independent dispute resolution in the event that there's any issues that might emerge.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of things that we are doing. I mean, where obviously it's a little bit different from a regulatory standpoint. A lot of good things. I mean, ultimately, just like in US, I'm sure in UK, you want to get to a point where there's more companies that follow specific rules and do the job specific way, so that we can take care of the consumer, and that's what we're trying to do here. Obviously, we want to root out the bad players
Yeah.
that hurt the rest of us,
Yeah.
because and obviously give moving industry or removal industry not the greatest name possible, and that's
Yeah.
something that obviously we all want to change, whether you're in UK or in US or
No,
other parts of the
absolutely.
world for that matter, because
Absolutely.
we all want to
And
provide good service and good work.
No, we absolutely want people to be competing on quality, value, and service, not
Absolutely.
on price and cutting corners as a
Right.
result.
Right. You want, yeah, it's the same thing as salespeople. We want to sell value. We really don't want
Yeah,
to sell the price. We want to sell the
yeah,
value of the
yeah,
service that's provided. So that's something that we 100% as an industry want to focus on. So
absolutely.
Andrew, thank you so much for spending time with me. Really appreciate all the input. It's awesome. It's great to provide that information and share that with
Yeah,
UK companies, removal companies that are considering joining an association like the bar, and at the same time to be able to compare with US companies and what we face here in the United
absolutely.
States as far as the industry goes. So, once again, thank you very much for your time. And
Yeah,
like I always say, the world moves on its own, so let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you very
absolutely.
much for joining us, and we'll talk again soon.